Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us live here on Saturday morning on 11 o'clock Pacific time, whatever it is, your local. And if you're catching us on the replay, then thank you for taking the time. Ooh, this is going to be an exciting episode. And I do realize that this is now 2 weeks that we've gone without a live stream. And let's really quickly recap as to what's going on logistically. If you are a first-time viewer here or don't know anything about Star Trek New Worlds, Star Trek New Worlds is a turn-based strategy game that we play here online with you today on Facebook Live. Thank you, Tony, for reminding me to go live on Facebook Live. Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitch. We play it using the rule set of the game Federation Empire, published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, and the map you're about to see is produced by the wonderful software Vassal. All right, so in the past couple of weeks, this is a campaign that's been going on for a very long time. If you are a longtime viewer, then you've been following the journey, and we are in a stage of the game, the late stage of the game. One might call it the end game, where a lot of the factions are starting to fight, and there have been a lot of battles over this turn specifically. And when the heat rises and the combat increases, the workload on our GM, Game Master Daniel, is quite high. He has to process all these battles, and we'll talk about one of these very shortly. Yeah, the workload increases, and it just gets a little sort of problematic to chug through all these turns. And because of there's so much to go back and forth, it's kind of crazy. So with all that said, the pace of the turns has slowed down a little bit because of some epic battles that have been going on, one of which we will talk about today. So we're doing a little bit of catch up here, and the map we're going to show you is as of right now, turn 99. So very exciting. We're on the cusp of 100, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I suppose without further ado, let's just get into the galactic news. Meet the new boss. Yada yada yada. Chofak has once again been recaptured, this time by the Carnivons. Carnivon forces executed a large attack against Gorn forces in Lyran space, forcing them to pull back to the Lyran border. Are they the saviors of the Lyrans? Are they the saviors the Lyrans have been looking for, or just the first line? Jeez, only the first in line for them to fight. Whose empire is it anyway? Romulan and Klingon forces continue to fight across the southern galaxy. Romulan ships are roaming through eastern Klingon territory, and Klingons are striking bases inside the Romulan Empire. At the rate bases and planets are being bombed, there may soon be a no man's land, making attack logistics impossible. Is carnage the path to peace? It looks like we will get to find out coming soon. The Deadly Day. As predicted by many here at Galaxy Today, Gorn and Tholian forces have launched an all-out assault on the Carnivon homeworlds. Rapid defensive preparations have been made as the Carnivons braced for what was coming. Their fleets raced out to meet the invaders as they transited the wormhole into Carnivon territory. The Carnivons put up a fierce defense at the wormhole, then fell back and intercepted invaders as they approached the Carnivon home system. After a series of meeting engagements and centered around Tholian pinwheels, the attackers decided that an assault on the fortress of the Carnivon home system would leave them too weakened. Exercising the better part of valor, they retreated through the wormhole, again under heavy fire. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the brief Galactic News. All right, so Galactic News was a little abbreviated today because, again, the workload on trying to get all these turns sorted out today was high. And so our GM only had a limited time to be able to pump out a little bit of Galactic News for us today. However, we have lots of exciting things to go into. Before we jump into the map, I just want to quickly give you a quick tour around our screen here. So if you like what's going on, you like things turn-based Star Trek, and you're going to salivate at the exciting news that's coming in the map here momentarily, then you can be like Jose Valente and be a subscriber here on Star Trek New Worlds. If you are so excited and you like what we do so much, then you can take that QR code with your phone or head over to coffee.com/New Worlds and fire us a disruptor blast of caffeinated goodness. And keep us caffeinated, motivated, and stimulated to give you the best and greatest in Star Trek strategy content. So you can send us that way, and if you do it during the course of this live stream, you will see the notification fly up, the disruptor blast sound, and good times will be a-coming. But let me delay no further. Let's slide into the map. Hoorah! Ladies and gentlemen, exciting and delighting stuff that's going on here today. Let's do the quick recap of where we are economically and from the ship count. Here we go. All right, so going from top to bottom, the Carnivon are at 52.5 EP. Exciting. The Gorn at a sweet 66. The ISC 67.5. The Klingons are hovering just shy of 80 with 78.5. The Remans over 80 at 80.5. The Romulans just above the 60 mark at 60.5 EP. And the Tholians at 79 even, knocking on 80's door. Interesting how the economics have shifted, of course, during combat or during a war campaign. Now the Remans are the top dog economically. Tholians number 2, the Klingons slipping to number 3. All right, let's talk about fleet cap. Woohoo! There have been a lot of ship losses in recent days, so these numbers are going to fluctuate. The Carnivons, with a massive fleet of 150 ship equivalents, so 157 ships floating around with a 484 attack, 660 defense. Interesting, look at this. Fleet cap of 831. 831. That is the biggest fleet cap on the map. 831 with a defense factor of 660. There are a lot of crippled Carnivon ships in space. The Gorn also with a high amount of ships, 153 total ships with 433 attacks, 625 defense, fleet cap of 695. As a reminder, that difference between fleet cap and defense factor, generally speaking, when you see a big number there, that's a lot of crippled ships in the fleet. Fleet cap being the total number of defense factors of non-crippled ships. And then, of course, the defense factor is incorporating any cripples or lowered defense factors in the fleet. The ISC have 123 ships in their fleet, 458 total attack factors, 612 is their defense factor, fleet cap of 618. The Klingons, once mighty with their 100 and almost 50 ships, now down to 109. With 463 total attack factors, 499 defense, fleet cap of 516. So a few cripples there floating around. The Remans at 166, dropping from the number one fleet spot here. Now number two at 166 total ships, 610 total attack factors, 693 defense with a total fleet cap of 713. Interesting. The Romulans are now at a total of 81 ships with a 287 attack factor, 419 defense, with a fleet cap of 476. Really interesting to note that. Look at the almost, not quite, almost 50, maybe more like 2/3 of attack factor to defense factor with under 300 total attack factor compared to their opponent, the Klingons, at 463. Very interesting to note. And not as wide a difference in total ships as you might think. The Tholians are now at number one with total number of ships at 172. Wow. 172 ships, 475 attack factor, this is a ridiculous number, 760 defense factor with 790 total fleet cap. Interesting to note that the Carnivon's fleet cap is higher than the Tholians with substantially lower number of ships. Very interesting to see that as it is. So, wow. All right, so before we jump into this map, I have not had a chance to look at this map at all. It came in hot off the presses this morning as we were prepping for this live stream. So you'll have to excuse me as I react to what's going on. In the prelude up to this, we knew that there were a bunch of battles that were occurring. Of course, as was in the galactic news, there was some back and forth between the Klingon and Romulan front, or on the Romulan-Klingon front. There was a massive assault on the Carnivon homeworld, and very exciting stuff. So if you want to find out some of the interesting details, there were some very interesting battles that occurred in the sense of the outcomes were surprising. The tactics and the mechanics were very interesting. We are going to do a more substantive live stream diving into some of these battles at some point later. Whether it's later this weekend or the early part of next week, we shall see. It depends on the availability of our game master, who processes these battles and sort of knows the ins and outs of what's going on. So if you want to see that, then please feel free to be like Jose. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, someone has fired a coffee, caffeinated goodness. Sweet. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, coffee has been fired by someone. Sneaky. Someone has fired a coffee. You saw the disruptor bolt fire. You saw that green bar now moving across the bottom of the screen to our goal of 3 coffees for today. But if you want to be like Jose and hit that subscribe button, help us get to the number 500 total subscribers, as we are currently just under 330, and we are working towards the magic number 500 to unlock the community tab here on YouTube. But of course, if you want to fire us a coffee and send some caffeinated goodness our way, that boom, please don't be shy. All right, so where were we? Yes, there's going to be a hopefully another live stream this weekend or early part of next week. We're going to dive into those details of the battles because, like I said, there were some very, very interesting sort of details about this battle. We'll cover some of it today, but the real in-depth, nitty-gritty conversation, that is going to be coming. So feel free to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're notified so that you can see that when it comes. All right, let's dive in. Let's start off with the border between the Romulans and the Klingons. All right. So this is very interesting. Let's just zoom out here really quick, and we can see the chaos that the Romulans are causing. I'll slide this over ever so slightly so you can get a slightly better picture. What you can see here is a very problematic, from the Klingon perspective, irritating for sure, and excellent execution by the Romulans. Now, I'll take away the ships real quick so you can see sort of what's going on here. You will notice, and let me use the supply, where are you? Supply menu for the Klingons, and I will put it in for the Romulans. Boom. And I will set supply at 4. Actually, I'll set supply at 5 because we know that the Romulans have 5 supply. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We are looking at, in red, the Romulan supply network, in gray, the Klingon supply network, and how far it reaches. There is one minor one minor thing that's not being shown here, and that's this planet. How do I change that? I think it's because... Anyways, I'll show you here in a moment. Oh, no, it's it is shown there. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at, in gray, the supply reach for the Klingons. In red, the supply reach for the Romulans. And where you see the sort of stronger color here is the overlap between the gray and the red. So, supply 5. We know that the Romulans have supply 5. So what we can see here is that the reach of Romulan supply into Klingon territory, at least along the former border between us, where the front line initially was, is foobarred. Between the bases that have been destroyed previously by the Romulans on the Klingon side and the current strikes that have been executed by the Klingons against the Romulans this past turn, you can see that their reach is substantially reduced. There is sort of 2 key points of, at least along the border, when it comes to the added reach, we'll call it. And that is this base right here, which you can see is currently has 2 SIDS worth of damage. It was attacked this past turn. And that is one of the battles that we'll talk about as far as the exciting sort of what happened and how, in this case, how did it survive? So there was a force of ships that went down to attack it, and there was, in the last turn, there was a pivotal battle that occurred over a Romulan YDK that was here in Bravo 45. And that pivotal battle resulted in a boatload of crippled Romulan ships. Those ships scattered, as is sort of best practice, to all the surrounding bases to be able to repair and recover as quickly as possible. There was a YDK in the north of the Romulan territory here in Zulu 42. There was a YDK down here, which you can see right over the Y or Yankee wormhole. There is a YDK back on the homeworld, and then the rest were YBSs, or sort of first stage, early era base stations. So those ships were scattered across, and of course more ships on the YDKs to facilitate that repair. In this turn, when the Klingons attacked, they scattered and attacked all the various infrastructure and bases around to be able to break down that repair capacity. We were successful in the north based on everything that happened, and the Zulu 42 base was destroyed. We were unsuccessful in the south just because of the combination of the ships that were sent there and a unique feature that YDKs can use in battle, which is battlefield repair. For those of you who are not familiar with how it works in this game, you can repair ships at bases for half an EP for every point of damage. However, in a battle, you can spend 1 EP per point of damage and repair them in the battle, like during the combat round. It's very expensive, again, twice the cost, 1 point per damage point that you're repairing, but it's a way to be able to take crippled ships and get them back on the front line ASAP. That may be the pivotal sort of component to whether your base will or won't survive. In the case of this base in Alpha Alpha 52, there was battlefield repair used in the combat. And because of that, it survived. There were, I'd have to check, but I believe there were 4 crippled Snipe Bs that were defending this base, and battlefield repair was used to be able to repair them. And there is currently only one Snipe B remaining, one crippled Snipe B remaining. And of course, the YDK has 2 SIDS of damage. So very interesting to see how this has sort of broken down and how it's working. So very, very interesting. But again, looking at this crossroads of supply, you can see that this base with a 5 hex supply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is the critical component that is allowing them to be able to have that fixed supply range to sort of the border or the border area there. Now, let's not forget about this little guy here. And I don't say this little guy with any sarcasm, of course. The Romulans have been very effective in using their deep strike capability, or rather ships positioned to be able to deep strike against certain logistic targets, such as these planets. Now, one of the things that's been very interesting and a real pain in the Klingons' butt is the fact that in this game it's turn-based, meaning that one player goes in their entirety, their turn ends, and then the next player goes in their entirety. However, we don't play this in real time looking over a tabletop board like the normal Federation Empire game is normally played, but rather we play this over email and virtually over the internet. And so therefore, we don't have real-time sort of visibility on how the moves are finished in each player's turn. What that means is that the person who goes first, in this case the Romulans will go, and then after the Romulans are finished their move, the Klingons will go. I, as the Klingons, don't know where the Romulans have moved all their ships. I can't see that. I know where they started. I know where they could go potentially, but I don't know what they have or have not done. So we end up writing what are called contingency orders, or these messages that help us understand and appreciate what has been done or what we want our ships to do, to potentially do during our turn. But you have to write them when you're on the other side of the initiative, when you go later rather than earlier in the initiative. You have to write your orders anticipating the potential options that in this case, the Romulans come up with. Now, maybe you think of all the options. Maybe you don't. Maybe they do something that you were not anticipating or expecting. And have you written your contingency orders with enough generality to be able to kind of encompass all the things that have happened? Usually the answer is no, because it's difficult to write those contingency orders, to be able to think about every possible thing they could do. Now, there were some very logical things that happened and some things that didn't happen. And because of some things that for example, I did not effectively anticipate, and all the different options that could occur, there were a couple things that sort of didn't get done as effectively as one would like. One of them being, for example, this little planet here didn't get taken because of some other stuff that was going on. What that means is this planet now is a supply point for the Romulans, and they can get supply within that network. However, what's interesting to note is that this planet only provides 1 EP right now, and that 1 EP provides supply to only 5, count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ships. And if you have more than 5 ships, then you've got to kind of pick and choose where you're going to send that supply to, or you pay the Orions 2 EP for every 1 EP of supply to be able to supply ships. So it ends up costing you 2 to 1 to be able to supply ships. So anyways, interesting to note here, we've got these ships, this planet that is still there, and of course these ships that are here, and this is a little pocket of supply that the Romulans have inside my space. Real pain in the butt, one might say. Very interesting, though, to see how it's all working out. And of course, there's options for our factions to have tugs or convoys that provide extended supply, so just extend supply, which isn't shown here on this particular layer of the map. But for example, I can see that there is a YFB, which is a which is a Romulan tug, and it is most likely going to be providing extended supply to the surrounding area around it. And so that'll be interesting to see how that works. All right. So interesting. Okay. Let's take away the supply menu. And we'll take away the Romulan. We'll take away the Klingon. Anytime you're ready, eyes, find the Klingon. There's Kazinti. There's the Klingon. Goodness gracious. Okay, so here we are. We got the map with the ships back on it. And as you can see, there is this void area here where, as was talked about in the Galactic News, there's like a no man's land of supply. The only sort of supply that's being sort of figured in there is the supply provided by sort of fixed planetary targets, hence this guy up here, and some planetary networks sort of on the fringe. Very interesting how that's working out. In the north, you can see here that there is an interesting combination of ships that are moving in such a way to cause issues. Issues in the sense of like those ships are just being really problematic. And so you can see here, for example, you've got this Vulture and First Fleet. Now the Romulan First Legion, excuse me. And First Legion isn't like a whole bunch of crazy stuff, but it is a King Eagle, a Scout, two frigates, SNBs or B snipes, and of course the Vulture there. So there's 5 ships there. They're not insignificant, and they're pretty potent. You've also got this group of ships just sitting there on the fringes, waiting to do some exciting stuff, and I'm sure that they will come out here and pop a base or two or something. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all sort of manifests over the next little while. Yes, very interesting. And of course, the Romulans have done a really good job of taking their ships and sort of scattering them to take these various resources. You can see the Snipe B has done that here. They previously stole away a couple of these resources here, which is interesting and irritating. So that's an example of that. And they did that in the south here as well. And of course, it took me a while, but the Klingons have eventually cleaned that up. So generally speaking, what do we have here? We have, again, nothing but admiration for the Romulans and the execution of their war. Let's just recap and give the Romulans the props they deserve. They started off this war with fewer ships, fewer combat factors, like a less powerful fleet, generally speaking. Fewer attack factors to defense factors, fewer number of ships total. But what they did have was the element of surprise. They totally caught me off guard. They did it. They executed in a way that was, first of all, they had initiative, so that was one thing, which is an advantage. 2, they caught me by surprise and in a complacent sort of mode and attitude that left me open, very much open for an attack, and really executed well this strategy of basically eradicating my supply network, which is basically the crux of their very effective strategy. Curses. On the Klingon side, not to blow my own horn, but there has been an effective rebuffing of that initial onslaught. Remember, the Romulans got so deep that they actually did an attack on the Klingon home system. So they attacked the Klingon homeworld. They got that deep. And basically eradicated almost all the bases between the Klingon homeworld and the border. So again, kudos to them for a very effective and well executed campaign. Huge pain in the butt. So that was well done, and now the sort of harassing engagement in the north is very interesting. Because at the moment, it looks as if there is a certain number of ships that are out of position and out of supply. And I believe, or at least it looks like, the Romulans are engaging in a strategy to deep strike, really disrupt my supply network, which, for example, they blew up there was a base, a YDK here in November 37, and First Legion and this Vulture attacked and destroyed the ships that were in this hex. Very inconvenient for me. So that happened. And then, of course, this fleet is now caught here outside of any extended supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is there's a tug right here. These two FEs are tugs, and they are providing extended supply into this area. I imagine they are going to build a base here shortly, and they're going to provide extended supply. Again, irritating, but this is what they do. And so they're doing a very effective job of like causing all this harassing engagement in the north of the Klingons. So as far as the Romulan-Klingon war goes, it is still very much, I would say, an equal game. The Klingons have done an effective job of pushing back the Romulans back past the border. They have done some very effective deep strikes in destroying logistics and supply in the back end of the Romulan territory, or then the front end of Romulan territory. And so they've been very effective in that regard. However, the Romulans are equally as effective at harassing and disrupting supply and logistics in the sort of the back end of the Klingon network and supply network. And when this war is all done, regardless of who wins, let's assume that the Klingons win, because I'm the Klingons. If the Klingons do win, they will be so ravaged in the process of winning that it will take forever to recover, because their infrastructure will be so like devastated. If the Romulans win, which is possible, in fact, one might say it's almost like 50-50 at this point. If the Romulans win, then there could be a rather substantive sort of rebuilding of their infrastructure network. Depending on how this goes and sort of like the progression of the war and what supplies and bases are built along the way, there could be a point where they just don't have the reach and supply network to be able to support and access all the territory that they can potentially claim. Same thing for the Klingons. So regardless of which side wins this war, both sides will be so devastated and ravaged that there will be long recovery times in the process, which is interesting because, of course, one might argue, and we've said before, we're in the late stage of this game. So very, very interested to see how this is going to go. All right. Let's get away from those Klingons and Romulans. Who wants to talk about those guys? Let's talk about the Balkans. Okay. So the Balkans has been a extremely interesting focal point for all these attacks, or sort of the battles that have been occurring. And up until now, we've really seen a focus between the Carnivons and the Gorn. In the last couple of turns, the Gorn had been building and has substantially created these bases in, I believe it was Uniform 11 and Uniform 9, working their way up to Chofak. They were building a supply network to be able to provide them logistical support to be able to attack the Carnivon. This turn, however, we've seen a substantive shift in that effort. Not only do we notice there are no more bases in this area here, in the sense that the Carnivon have effectively eliminated those bases, but we've also seen that now they've established another sort of hold point or beachhead at Chofak once again, and they're in a position to be able to, if they wanted to, attack the Lyran home system, but certainly rebuff the Gorn assault. The Gorn, however, of course, sitting here, there is quite a collection of ships, rather scattered. Let's see if we can make sense of what's going on here. Let's pull up the Gorn named fleets, which are the majority of what's going on here. We have Hammer and Mobile Fleet. So Hammer and Mobile Fleet, if you're looking here on the far right, is the top and the bottommost elements here. So we have a CA, or do we have two? So we have a total of 3 CAs in these two fleets, a light cruiser, CLM, 2 scouts, and 2 prime teams. So a total of, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 ships, 2 prime teams. And then here as well, we have 1, 2, 3 CAs. Am I get that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 CAs. And then another 1, 2, 3, 4 light cruisers, and then a collection of DDMs. So we've got, oh dear, what do we got? 1 non-crippled ones. 1, 2, 3, 5, 11 DDMs, and it looks like another 4 crippled, or no, sorry, 10 crippled, and a couple of YDDs, 1 crippled, 1 not crippled. So a collection of ships that is not insubstantial, so a good combat force, all sitting here on this YBS. Let's just take away the ships real quick. Yep, YBS right here. And that's really significant because, again, it's just impeded the reach of the Gorn into this area of space. Of course, those M ships, they can move 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can reach Chofak. I don't know where the Gorn are with their supply network. We know that the Romulans are at 5 supply. Are the Gorn there as well? Possibly. If the Gorn have 5 supply, then they could reach Chofak with their supply. And if they took Chofak, they would have connected supply and infrastructure to be able to launch a full-out assault on Carnivon space. The Carnivon, though, that we can see here, do have connected supply network to Chofak and can certainly hold that position. We'll just see how that goes sort of in the coming turns. And then, of course, don't forget about our good Reman friends. Les Reman, with Triton Fleet. Triton Fleet has historically been this monster. Things have not changed. This monster of a fleet. And then, of course, we've got Pegasus Fleet here. Let's take a look at Reman Pegasus Fleet. Where are you, Pegasus Fleet? Okay. So this is what we got. Triton Fleet, which is traditionally the big one with all the maulers, still has 10 maulers. 10 maulers in the fleet with 3 other KRMs. So KRMs are their modern cruiser. They have a command cruiser, D4, so KD4C, 3 Y-era cruisers, a boatload of destroyers, which are these Y-era destroyers, like my F4. They are KF4 pluses, so 7 of those. They have basically the equivalent of the E4M, which is the K4M, an M-era ship. They've got 10 of those. Those are great little ships. They've got a KRT, which is an M-era tug at a 6.8, very good tug. And, of course, a couple other little crippled ships here on top of a YDK. Then down below here on Pegasus, another YDK in construction. They have 2 maulers, a total of, what is this? Brain is just, yeah, okay, 3 K5Ms. So K5Ms are like the F5M for the Klingons. So great ship. It's a destroyer. And it looks like they are... Is that K5M? K4M, K5M. Let me just pull up what a K5M is. So I thought a K5M would be a straight 4 ship, but maybe it's a 4-3. That doesn't make sense. Let's take a quick look here. M-era Hawk ships, Eagle ships. There we are. So, oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Romulans. Let's look at Remans. There we go. M-era ships. So M-era small ships, the K5M. Wow, look at that. So K5M is a 5-4 ship, 5 attack, 4 defense. That's huge. So 3 of these ships, I should have done the math. That's 15-12. That's a more powerful and effective ship than the the F5M, which is of course the Klingon variant. Very interesting. That I think that's all because of plasma. Plasma is a very effective weapon, and a lot of the offensive firepower of Reman ships is elevated because of that. So yeah, we've got great destroyers, great frigates, and of course maulers. And the K7RM is their like D7 equivalent, and it's a great ship. So interesting to see the distribution of their ships. Where some of the Reman ships are better than their Klingon variants. And then I would say that the D7M, which is the Klingon version, is an 8-7 ship. Theirs is a straight 8. So interesting to note those little subtle differences between them. Okay, so we can see that there are big fleets on the border with the Lyran space, which are here in Reman territory, all of which are... all of which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of which are within movement range of the Gorn outpost here. So very interesting. And then of course, like I say, you've got this area down here, which is the Gorn sort of beachhead into the Balkans. So we've been talking about this for a number of turns. What's going to happen in this dynamic? So far, it's been a slugfest between the Carnivon and the Gorn. And there's been no involvement of the Remans into this fight. However, this turn, saw the Gorn attack the Carnivon homeworld with Tholian assistance. Will that change things? With the political dynamics of that are substantive. So let's take a look. All right, scrolling down, let's take a look at this wormhole right here. This is the wormhole that leads into Carnivon territory. And so let me move my head to the other side real quick. And whoop, let's take a look at the Carnivon home system. So just as a reminder, this is the Carnivon capital. The Carnivon capital, there's so many ships that can't even fit. So right now we've got Diamond and Home Fleet there. We have a bunch of crippled ships that we can see here. A command cruiser, very interesting to note. An M era, or in really GW, era command cruiser, which is an 8 attack, 9 defense ship with a heel nipper. You've got a scout, a frigate scout, destroyer, M era destroyer, and a CA and a CL. These are all the non-crippled ships, and then a couple drone bombardment cruisers from the Y era. Then you've got 1, 2, 3 destroyers, all M era. You've got 1, 2 light cruisers, M era. You've got one cruiser crippled, and it looks like a frigate, 2 frigates, M-era frigates crippled as well. We've also got, like I said, Home and Diamond Fleet. Let's pull up those. Carnivon Home. Ooh, and Carnivon Diamond Fleet. So this is all the aftermath of the battle, and I'll share with you the details of that battle shortly here. But let's look at what we have. We've got a total of 4 dreadnoughts, not crippled. A M-era cruiser, still fully operational. Other than that, we've got a couple of YCCs that are crippled. All of these look like Y ships. We've got drone bombardment destroyers, a total of 5 of them. Drone bombardment cruisers, a total of 2 in one fleet and 4 in another, 6 of them. Y-era light cruisers, 2. Y-era destroyer, 1. And then, of course, 2 YCCs, all crippled. And then the non-crippled ships still in these 2 fleets, a total of 4 DNs, an M-era cruiser, and a Y-era drone bombardment cruiser. So as you can see here, a lot of crippled ships in the overall assault on the Carnivon capital. What do we see on the other side? Well, a couple things. One, the big news here is the fact that the Tholians moved in to attack the Carnivon through the wormhole with the Gorn. So very interesting. Let's look at the Gorn. What do we got? We got Gorn New Fleet. So let's take a Gorn New Fleet. And the Tholian 101st Battle Squadron. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So, Battle Squadrons, 101st. Okay, so you can see that New Fleet isn't really much. We've got a total of 7 destroyers, M-era destroyers, 2 cruisers, and then the Battle Squadron here, which is the Tholians. We have a cruiser, 1 destroyer, 1 patrol craft, all non-crippled. Everything else crippled. 3 patrol craft, 3 destroyers, and a cruiser. These are all interesting to note. The 3 and 3 are what you use for pinwheels, so very interesting to note there. So those ships are there, and then the remainder of the ships sitting on the hex, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 non-crippled destroyers. So if we add the other non-crippled destroyers, that's a total of 14 non-crippled M destroyers for the Gorn. We have a light cruiser and a dreadnought sitting on that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry. 8 plus 7, so 15 total destroyers, and then a light cruiser and a Y-era dreadnought sitting on that wormhole along with the Tholian ships. I would be interested to note if the Tholian ships are out of supply because they're outside of their supply range, but they're probably being supplied by the Gorn, which is because they're allied right now. So it'd be interesting to see and note. Very close to this all is the YDKs that can provide repairs. So you've got this DDM, so 3 ships, 1 of them crippled, so a couple of DDMs there. We've got 2 crippled DDMs and 4 non-crippled, 1 M-era cruiser, and of course some sort of other auxiliary ships that are supporting everything. So very interesting to see that dynamic there. Very, very interesting. Yes. Very interesting. Okay. So let's talk about the actual battle that occurred. And let's slide back to our chat to discuss. All right. So, what was the structure of the battle through? First of all, what was the sort of the environment, the landscape of this assault, and what were the steps that were taken? So, first of all, there was a transit through a wormhole. Now, you've seen, if you followed this channels for any length of time, you've seen us do a couple of detailed wormhole battle discussions, specifically when the Klingons went through the wormhole into the Balkans and attacked the remnants of the Federation. We did a whole in-depth live stream battle of that combat and what that looked like. So that was a very sort of insightful way to show the mechanics of going through a wormhole, how that worked, the targeted damage that you can take, and so on and so forth. So if you've seen that, you have a sense of what's going on. But let's recap how this works. So from a wormhole transit perspective, when you go through a wormhole, there is a technology that you have as a faction of research, and you have a certain number of ships that you can transit through a wormhole every battle round. In this case, the Gorn have the maximum of that technology, so they can transit a total of 12 ships in any one battle round. When you transit ships through that battle round, they can't use any of their normal special abilities. So scouts can't be scouts, or they can't use EW. Tholians, by example, can't use pinwheel. Heel nippers for Carnivon, if they're going through the wormhole, they can't use heel nippers. Whatever your special ability is, you can't use it. So they're just basic ships. Also, the ships going through the wormhole don't have any control over the battle intensity rating, meaning just like when ships attack a base with no supporting ships, the faction attacking gets to choose the battle intensity rating for both factions. So if you want to max it out, it's 10 or 8 with variable burr. So essentially maximum burr if that's what you want, or minimum if that's what you want. But generally speaking, if you're defending, you're attacking these guys coming through the wormhole, you're going to max out your burr and do the most amount of damage. And thirdly, you can do directed damage at 1-to-1 to any targets going through that wormhole, with the exception of ships in formation bonus. So, and ships in formation bonus are 2-to-1. So that is really significant because you can just dial in on different ships and destroy key valuable vessels, cruisers, or let's say scouts that are coming through. You want to take those out. You can really target on ships at 1-to-1 damage. So there's no decrease in the effectiveness of your directed damage. It can be very, very effective. So because this is a capital assault, there's the capital assault rules on top of that. So you have the first stage, which is the wormhole. And when you go through a wormhole, you have 3 approach battles through the wormhole. If you are successful as the attacker coming through the wormhole, if you're successful in that, then you can move straight to the sort of system defense after that. So 3 rounds of approach battles as you're transiting through the wormhole. If you are unsuccessful, then you're stuck at the wormhole. For example, if you were bringing 12 ships through and the defending force attacked you with such overwhelming firepower, they blew out all those ships that came through, destroyed all 12 ships, and then you have to do it again. And so you try and get the next 12 ships through. And if you are unable to successfully get ships through the wormhole, then you never advance beyond the transit rounds. But if you are able to get ships through the wormhole and establish sort of like a beachhead and start working your way forward, 3 approach battles, and then you get to the system defense. Now, when you're doing a capital system defense, there's 2 phases to that as well. The first phase is the approach battle, meaning I see you coming and I'm going to send ships out to defend. So this is just like any other approach battle for a planet or a base or a unit being treated as a base. So they have to do 3 transit or 3 approach battle rounds. There's some criteria. You could get past 3 if you wanted, if you were effective enough. But basically 3 approach battle rounds that you would execute, just like you were doing approach battles on any other fixed base or unit being treated as a base. And all that means is that you're doing the approach battle, and the force that's going in to meet them is engaging them at that approach battle phase. Why would you do that? Because in the third phase, the defender has to divide his forces amongst the capital system, and that's what makes this more difficult. So when you get past those approach battles, both the wormhole and the system defense, then you're actually attacking the planets in the capital hex. And this is where it gets complicated. First part of this is the defender has to take their entire fleet defending the capital and divide it into two. You divide it into two as equally as possible based on ship class or size class. You divide them as equally as possible, with any difference being up to the defender to make up the difference. So, like, for example, if you had 15 ships, you go 8 and 7, and you decide as the defender which goes 8 and which goes 7. But generally speaking, 2 cruisers, 4 destroyers, 3 frigates, 2 frigates, that kind of thing. And so you divide it as equally as possible. One group of that half is the fixed system defense. You can then divide that half of ships amongst the different planets in your system wherever you like. You can put them all on your capital. You can put them scattered, 3, 2, 1 on the different various planets. However you want to scatter them, you can scatter them. And then the second group, the other half of your attack force, is like a floater fleet or a quick reaction force. And they can move to wherever the attacker is attacking. So let's map this out. If you had 2 groups of ships, so let's say you had 10 defending ships, you need to break them into 5 and 5. You take 5 ships and you divide them amongst the 3 planets in your defense. You have the main capital planet and then a minor planet and let's say a colony. So I put 3 of my ships on defending the capital, 1 ship each on the other 2 planets. Those are my fixed defenses. And then I have a floater fleet of 5 ships. And then the attacker, the advantage the attacker has is that they can then decide where they want to attack. They can take all their ships, they don't have to divide them, take all their ships and they can attack whichever planet they want in whatever sequence they want. So I want to attack the colony, then the minor planet, then the capital, I can do that. Or if I want to hit the capital first and then clean up later, whatever the attacker wants to do, they can do that in that order. The challenge for the fixed defender is that if you retreat from the colony or the minor planet or any other planets that you don't that you're having fixed defenses at, when you retreat those forces have to retreat the hex in its entirety. The floater fleet can still retreat that battle and go to another place, but if you retreat forces from the fixed component or the fixed ships that were in that defense, they retreat the capital hex completely. So if I had 3, 2, 1, and 1 respectively, and the attacking fleet has 10 ships total, with my floater fleet, I decide to leave them all defending my home capital, then as the attacker comes in, they attack the colony first, and let's say I want to preserve that ship that I left defending there, and I retreat it, it retreats out of the capital hex and can't be involved in any more combat. Same thing with the minor planet, and then I attack the capital, main system planet, and then there's a major battle there. You can't do a fighting retreat layered from colony to minor planet to major planet because every ship from the fixed defenses, not the floater fleet, every fixed defense ship has to retreat the hex if they retreat the battle. So what does that all mean? It just means that if you're defending your capital, it is a pain in the posterior, pain in the butt. And you are going to be weakened because you have to spread your ships out. Yes, you can concentrate them as much as you like on the capital, but you will suffer devastation on those other planets as it goes. Also, if you have like bases and planetary ground defenses on each one of these planets, they're obviously fixed and they'll stay there, but you're going to lose those if the attacker is able to, at their discretion, attack these various planets and progress towards your capital. It just makes defending your capital once you're inside the system even more challenging. And I would argue the advantage is to the attacker because they have more flexibility on what they can choose to do. So this capital defense thing can be a real pain in the butt. So as a recap, in the attack of the Gorn and the Tholians going through the wormhole and attacking the Carnivon, they had to 1. Transit the wormhole, 2. Approach battle the system, and then 3. Attack the capital defenses. So, how did that all work out? Well, let's talk about the forces. The Gorn started this attack with 1 YDN. Actually, hold on. Let me bring in this so it's a little bit more visual for you, and you can see what's going on. Let's see. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Nope. I'm going to try and zoom this in and make it a little bit easier for you to see. Nope. Okay. I'm trying to, because I'm sharing an email here, so I'm going to try and make it so that it's easiest possible to see here. Too much. All right. Let's see if this will work. All right. Okay. So as we talked about, the battle happens in 3 phases. There's the transit through the wormhole, the approach battle to the homeworlds, and the homeworld defense. So the ships that were involved in this battle were from the Gorn, a YDN, so their command platform, 10 ships. They had 2 CAMs, so these were M-era cruisers, 6 attack, 8 defense. The CLMs, which are their light cruisers, which I believe are 5-6. The DDMs, which are 3-4, and 3-4, and then 2 scouts. Now you can see 27 DDMs. That's a lot of ships. The Tholians had 2 cruisers, 4 DDMs, and 4 PCs. Now what's interesting about this is because there's rules around allied attacks, and I'd have to just confirm it, but going off the top of my head, if the faction with the most amount of ships has to provide the command platform. So, and that's the most amount of ships in any battle line. So if the Tholian forces were providing 2 pinwheels, which I believe is what happened, that's a total of those pinwheels count as 1 unit each. So they can do 2 pinwheels, and then the Gorn provide the rest of the forces, which means the Gorn have the YDN as their command platform, and then all the other ships. So that's how that could work. The Carnivon, as you can see for defending, they had a command cruiser, so that was their M-era command cruiser, 3 M-era cruisers, 3 light cruisers, 4 DDMs or DDs, destroyers, 7 M-era frigates, a scout, 3 of their YDNs, so they are 6/8s. The YCBs, which are the drone bombardment cruisers, and then a commando cruiser as well. So, oh, and excuse me, looks like a couple of crippled ships, as you can see here, and then 3 wolf teams. In the Carnivon home system, it just is like things to consider. They had on their main planet a YDK and a YBS, along with 8 YPGBs. There's a Klingon R&D team there and a Romulan R&D team there. And then these are the other 2 minor planets, both of which have 2 YPGBs each. So that is sort of how that worked. And then, I had it here a moment ago. Right. So as I shuffle this off screen here, I'll sort that out. Okay. So the Deadly Day. So we can see what they wrote in their battles, but I'll save that for our live stream when we talk about the battle in greater detail. But now I will share with you the ships that were destroyed as a result. So, this is what the losses were. So what ended up happening in general description is that the Gorn and the Tholians transited the wormhole, were brutalized in the wormhole advance, and then they did the approach battle. And then after the end of the approach battle, they decided that the better part of valor was to retreat, as you heard in the Galactic News, and they retreated back through the wormhole and were pursued and suffered some damage as a result of that. So in the initial battle, the Gorn lost 2 cruisers, M-era cruisers, 1 CLM, and 13 of those 27 DDMs were crippled. The Tholians only ever crippled ships, but they crippled a cruiser, 3 DDMs, and 3 PCs. So these are the two pinwheels that were crippled, and then, of course, a cruiser. The Carnivon, as far as their crippled and their losses, they lost 4 M-era frigates, 3 were crippled, 3 destroyers were crippled, 4 drone bombardment cruisers were crippled, and 2 light cruisers were crippled. The Gorn ended up, once they got through, so this is just the wormhole assault. This is what was damaged in the wormhole assault. And then to be able to attack the actual system, they had this remaining. They had a YDN, a CLM, 14 non-crippled destroyers, 13 crippled destroyers and their scouts, and then the Tholians had a crippled cruiser, as we talked about the crippled ships, but they had 1 cruiser and 1 PC patrol craft and 1 DDM non-crippled. The Carnivon forces had these as defending ships: the command cruiser, 3 cruisers, 3 light cruisers, a destroyer, crippled destroyers, crippled frigates, as you can see here, 4 YDNs, 3 YCBs, which are the drone bombardment cruisers. They had a couple crippled command cruisers and light cruisers, crippled drone bombardment cruisers, 3 prime teams, a commando cruiser, and then a couple of crippled destroyer and crippled drone bombardment destroyers as well. And so that's what they had for that assault. So when it was all said and done, the Gorn and the Tholians ended up retreating. And as a result of that retreat, they lost the following ships because they retreated back through the wormhole. And I believe at this point, this is what was available for the actual system. They had done the approach battle, they had done the wormhole battle and the approach battle to the system, and now they were going to attack the actual Carnivon home system. And this is what they had remaining. So let's just provide that there. Boop. Okay, so the Gorn retreated back through the wormhole and they fought a pursuit battle. They lost 6 DDMs, the Gorn, and the Carnivon crippled 1 cruiser. So a lot of good sort of ship swapping here as far as damage done, but very, very interesting. So as you saw when we look at the map and when it's all said and done, what do we see? We see that the Carnivon on their home system, so many crippled ships, but they go first for initiative, so it's important to remember. And the Gorn on this side of the wormhole, you can see that they have a fair number of ships, a fair number of non-crippled ships, that is, and the Tholians are sort of crippled and devastated a little bit. It would seem as though it is unlikely the Gorn will attack through the wormhole again, for example, the next turn, but who knows? Could be interesting. But both sides are battered. Both sides are bruised. I think that the Gorn definitely have the ability to repair faster because they have more YDKs on the immediate side of the wormhole. We'll see how this goes in the next couple turns, but as we saw through the wormhole battle, the advantage is clearly on the side of the Carnivon. All right, we have done a lot of talking. Let's get back into the chit chat and see what it is you guys have to say. So let's pop out the chat. There we go. Pop out chat and see what it is that you have to say. So we saw that the coffee was fired by someone, and then George is in the house. Hey, George. George Forknall. Guess Tony is working out the bugs on his recent system upgrade. Oh, yeah. So just as sharing a story. So I normally operate on a Windows PC. So Windows 10 has been my operating system until just recently. And then, shall we say, I had a visitor who was using my computer. And when they used it, I was, letting them use my computer. They upgraded me because Windows is being very aggressive about encouraging you to upgrade to Windows 11. And my system, it was prompting them to upgrade to Windows 11, and they just kind of went along with it and upgraded me to Windows 11. And so now I'm operating on Windows 11, which fundamentally isn't that much different. It's aesthetically different. There's a couple of sort of irritants when it comes to where to find things is a little different. But one of the things I really noticed is the software I used to be able to produce a live stream, which is vMix, lots of bugs. Things needed to be reset. I needed to rebuild a couple things, and still there's issues I'm seeing and noticing. So if you see any things that aren't quite right in today's live stream, then please forgive me. Windows 11 is the culprit. All right, so let's get back into it. Let's see here. Except for Gorn, we are able to repair quite well. Except for Gorn, repair quite well. I would say Remans have cloak as well. Yep, you got it right, Tony, Bill says. Okay, so Bill, you are I'm not following the thread of thought there. So yes, I got it right as far as the attacks and the battle, but I'm not following the except for Gorn, we are able to repair quite well. Remans have cloak as well. I'm not following that piece there. But yeah, so Remans have cloak. Oh yeah, so maybe we're talking about when I was talking about the Remans and their ships and the attack and defense factors are a little different. Yes, the Remans have cloak as well. So cloaking technology has its own sort of advantages, and then of course plasma. So that sort of can skew maybe some of the numbers on the attack and defense factors. Bill's saying that he has repair pods. So repair pods in all factions can get repair pods, but the Gorn specifically have like a tech up or an advantage to be able to get it earlier. And repair pods are interesting because they allow you to sort of repair ships in a forward deployed area, not taking them back to a base, by example, or an FRD, fleet repair dock. But in addition to that, they are also more expensive. So whereas you can repair ships at half an EP for 1 point of damage, repair pods are 1-to-1, I believe. I'd have to check that up. And then, of course, the Gorn have, what's it called? Not battlefield repair. Basically, they can repair ships after combat in the battle round. They don't have to wait till their next turn. So, for example, during the Gorn turn, they can attack, suffer damage, repair ships after that initial combat so that they're fresh and ready to go after the end of their turn for the next player's initiative. So it can be very, very, very interesting. Right. Hey, You Can't Be Petty has joined us. And, of course, George is here. Hey, hey, hey. All right, everybody. So, yeah, that's the basic kit and caboodle when it comes to what's going on so far in the big battles in the game. Let's do a quick round the clock real quick to be able to sort of highlight some of the other factions and what they're doing. And I'll slide over to the map for this. Oh, and I will slide my head over to the other sides because, goodness gracious, my noggin is big. So you can see here, this is our Reman faction in the top right-hand corner. We talked about the Triton and Pegasus fleets that are on the border with the Lyrans. And sort of what the Gorn situation might look like. So again, the tripartite or the three factions vying for control of Lyran space. Lyrans are loving it as you all fight over their territory and they get to build up their home defenses as much as possible. But through the rest of our Reman space, you can see that they are continuing to explore towards the center. As we go down to this little pocket here, which used to be a focal point in earlier days, we can see here that we've got ships, Cerberus fleet, for example. Cerberus fleet, where are we? Cerberus fleet. We have a couple of F4s and KE2s that are rocking and rolling. Of course, Acropolis fleet. Oh, wow, look at that. They've got all the fleets in one spot here. Very interesting. So Acropolis, Athena, and what was the other one? Pacifica, Athena, and Acropolis. Okay, let's pull them all up and see what's going on. So we got Athena, we've got Acropolis, and we've got Pacifica. There we are. Okay, so these are the three fleets that are one on top of each other. I'll put that over there so it's not in my head. So we've got the Dreadnoughts, the Y-era Dreadnought still kicking. Command Cruiser, Y-era Command Cruiser. We've got 2 cruisers, total of 21. Wow. Still 21. 21 F4s. KF4s, and then 11 KE2 pluses. And then, of course, we have another 12. So hold on. 21 plus 12, 33 F4s. Wow, KF4s. We have 10 plus 11 KE2s, so that's 22. And then some K4Ms for good measure, total of 5 of those. So we got a lot of ships that are able to cause some damage. Very interesting. So within striking distance to be able to support this planet of Armageddon, and of course the resource and what looks like base building that is occurring here, we see the Juggernaut Brachy fleet still sitting there, overseeing what may or may not happen in this area. And then, of course, we've got a couple of little ships sitting here on top of this wormhole, the November wormhole being, of course, the one that goes into right above my head here. You can see we've got Third Fleet on this YDK, Tholian Third Fleet being not crazy, but not unsubstantial. So it is a total of 3 DDMs, 6 patrol craft, and a M-era cruiser. All M-era ships here, by the way, and enough to be able to create a total of 3 different pinwheels. And then, of course, that's not what I'm trying to do. There we are. And then there's 3 patrol craft as well that are like operate as tugs as well. So very interesting that there's enough ships there to, put up a defense. And you need a substantive force to be able to go through and take that, just because of the obscene defense factors that the Tholians can deploy when they're executing their pinwheel. As a reminder, when you execute a pinwheel, when the Tholians do anyway, pinwheel requires 3 ships of either size class 4, so it's a destroyer, or in their case, patrol craft, which is their frigate. So PCs or DDMs, they go back to back, 3 of them, they form this pinwheel. It gives them a plus 50% to their defense factors. So by example, if we're looking at Third Fleet, so let's say 3 of these DDMs, which are 15, you add 7.5 to their total defense factor. That makes them a 22.5 defense factor unit, 1 unit. And if the Tholian pinwheel survives a battle round and there are only Tholian ships involved, then they establish a Tholian web. And a Tholian web prevents you from taking ships out of the battle line once they're in. Meaning that if you're attacking, a normal practice is to cripple ships, pull them out of the battle line, replace them with non-crippled ships. You can't do that anymore. You have to sacrifice your ships, or like they're in there for their entirety, crippled and destroyed. They're in there for the whole kit and caboodle of the battle. They can't swap out, which is unique. The only exception to that is rescue tugs can pull ships out, and you can have designated ships that aren't in the battle line, usually of the same size class, that can go in and pull them out using tractor beams. But there's a role that you have to do to be successful in that, and so more details on that to come. But it's a very interesting collection of events, and it makes it so challenging to deal with the goddamn Tholians. Rock people. What are you going to do? All right, so very, very interesting to see how this is all sort of breaking down and how things are occurring. It's a very, very interesting series of events. I'm curious to see how this is all going to manifest when it's all said and done. So, yeah, very exciting, and I am, again, because the Tholians have introduced themselves into the fight against the Carnivon, it's going to be very interesting how this evolves, because obviously the Tholians have been holding back. They have not gone to war. They have officially gone to war status now because they've attacked the Carnivon. So they are at war status where they weren't before. They are now, the Tholians are actively involved in conflict. And so what's going to happen? I don't know. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if they're at war status. I mean, they would go to war status because they attacked somebody, but they don't have any valid... Oh, yeah. Their ships are still within range of a valid military target, so they are still at war status. So, yeah, that they are definitely at war status. Okay. The ISC, as you can see here, have a little nuisance with planet Furball, as it's labeled here. You've got... Whoa! Wow, that's 8 PGBs because they're 3 attack, 3 defense each, so 24. That's 8 PGBs up there. You've got Battlefleet, the Kzinti Battlefleet, which is not insignificant if memory serves. Oh, wow. I'm not familiar with CDMs, but it looks like a... Oh, wow. It's a drone bombardment cruiser, 5.7. It also has 4 drone factors, so 4 damage for drone damage, and it has scout functions. That is a vicious ship. Wow. Okay. They also have a tug with 2 battle pods that makes it an 8-8, and it's got a 10 command factor. You've got 2 M-era cruisers with 7.7, light cruisers, which are 4.6s. Ooh, 13 frigates, M-era frigates, a bunch of drone bombardment frigates, and then a YDN. That is not an insignificant fleet. Wow. That's and then, of course, another tug and a YDK and the PGBs. That is a hard target, my friends. A very hard target. The ISC are continuing to, looks like, build up their military component. You can see this is the wormhole that leads into Tholian space. They've got 3 fleets there. Let's pull it up. Named fleets. So we've got Truth. Where's Truth? Truth at the bottom. You see you got a YDN, YCC, 2 YC, or no, yeah, YDN with a prime team, YCC with a prime team, CA, a bunch of CLs, 6 of them, and a scout, M-era scout to note. You got Providence and Truth fleet. Providence also has a command cruiser, 3 YCLs, and it looks like 5 YDDs. And then what was the other one? Providence and, come on now, be nice. Order has a YCA, 4 CLs, and a tug. So this fleet, probably enough to be able to poke through if they wanted to poke through and attack second fleet here. But, you know, it is what it is. Second fleet has a total of 6 DDMs, 6 PCs, and 2 Y cruisers, 2 Y-era cruisers. So a little bit, I would argue, a little bit tougher than the November wormhole, but they don't have the cruisers. They just have more ability to make irritating pinwheels, and then of course they got the YDK there. But the big thing about this fleet for the ISC is that they have a tug which can then build something on the other side and or provide extended supply and cause all sorts of chaos once they get onto the other side, potentially. So we've got both the Remans and the ISC in potential wormhole striking positions. We talked about the Carnivon both in the Balkans and, of course, that wormhole assault that left them ravaged at their homeworld. We've talked about the Klingons and their ridiculous Romulan problem. I mean, how are you going to get rid of those termites, my friend? I think we got to gas them out. I think that's the way to go. We look over to the Gorn. Now, of course, the Gorn did a massive assault onto the Carnivon. They are reeling from that battle, but you can see they've got a number of different activities sort of going on in this bottom corner here with a unknown stabilizer size class 2, which looks like to be a base, possibly a YDK. And then you've got a bunch of slow-moving size class 4. Maybe that's some kind of convoy. 2 size class 4 ships, maybe like tugs or destroyers or frigates. And then a size class 3, 2 of those, which could be cruisers perhaps. So there's something going on here. And then, of course, they've got ships that are checking that out. We've talked about the wormhole here. And then, of course, on their homeworld, you can see they've got very little guarding their homeworld. A couple of ships here guarding this double alpha. Where does the double alpha go? Is that the one that comes up here? Oh, yes. Double alpha goes out to the Balkans. So very interesting to guard that wormhole. And then, of course, the Victor wormhole has the YDK. We go up to the Tholians. And as we were talking about with the Tholians, we've got their continued efforts to guard wormholes. You have First Fleet sitting here. I'm going to take a quick look at First Fleet because, boy, these guys freak me out. Look at this. 6 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 24 patrol craft. God damn. And a scout. So they are building up quite a fleet there. Strike Fleet's slowly working its way over here and eventually will attack. You've got an M-era cruiser, 3 DDMs, and 3 YPCs. So this fleet is either a backup for this, or is going to attack here and maybe pin. I don't know. Tholian's got so much potential options going on. If they get Gorn Strike Fleet to participate in their ridiculousness, then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that could happen there as well. As you can see, the Klingons have quite a bit gathered here on this particular border with the, what is it, battle fleet. Where are you? Come on. There we go. Battle fleet invulnerable. Okay, so there we got the invulnerable battle fleet with looks like some tug action. Come on, anytime you're ready. Yeah, tug, some D6s, some D6Ls. I love those D6Ls. They are awesome. Some D7s, F5s, E4Ms, F5Cs, a scout battle cruiser, and then of course a whole bunch of other ships here as well. You got a bunch of F5Cs, D7C, all sorts of good stuff. We've got a new fleet up here with some F4s guarding the wormhole. Yeah, there's a lot of business going on here. It's like there's an arms race happening in the Balkans, or at least along this border between the Tholians and the Klingons, and no one is looking to blink, or so it would seem. Very irritating one way or the other. And then, of course, back to the Balkans where we all started. So, what do you think is going on when it comes to the state of the game? All right. Well, cough, cough, cough. Quick sip of caffeinated goodness. So if you joined us or you stayed with us this long, almost at the 1.5 hour mark of this live stream, 2 questions for you. 1, what questions do you want to see answered in the in-depth live stream about the various battles that have occurred across Klingon, Romulan, and the Gorn assault on the Carnivons? The Klingons had 8 different battles that had occurred, or 8 different sort of battle emails that occurred over their turn. The Romulans had as many, or almost as many, during their turn. And then, of course, the massive Gorn assault on the Carnivon home system, how that played out. There was a very interesting battle between 2 Klingon F5Cs and a Romulan base station. That did end up with the Romulan base station being destroyed, but the F5Cs were destroyed at the same time. According to Daniel, according to our GM, it was a very interesting battle, so I'm looking to find out more about that and what happened there. Lots of interesting sort of plays or mechanics that played out during the course of this last turn. And, of course, the changing dynamic when it comes to the Tholians have entered the fray. No more threatening from the shadows. They have officially launched an attack. They have attacked the Carnivon. Now, granted, we know that the Klingons and the Romulans are no longer part of the alliance with the Four Powers Alliance with the Remans and the IC. However, I think it's fair to say that the Romulans, the Gorn, and the Tholians, despite not being in a 3-way alliance, are still coordinating their effort. Is it the same with the Carnivon, Klingons, and the IC and the Remans? We shall see. Certainly there has been some friendly banter back and forth and some diplomatic discussions with each faction to say, don't do this or what have you. And so there's a lot of balance occurring in the game. So we'll have to see how this all plays out when it comes to the various forms of combat that are occurring, the results of those combats, the logistical impacts, the consequences for the galaxy, and what this means for the end of the game. Again, what questions do you want to see answered? And put that in the comments if you're catching this on the replay, and make sure that we know what it is that you are looking to see answered in that more in-depth live stream. Other than that, any other questions or comments you have, please feel free, like George is saying, to hit the thumbs up like button. Let us know that you like what we're doing and you want us to keep doing it. I can see, for example, we have 9 likes of the 10 folks that are currently watching our live stream right this second. So again, double digits. Thank you for the double digits. Let's make sure that we can sort of pass this on to all of our friends who like turn-based strategy, like sci-fi and Star Trek, heresy. How do you say that? Star Trek and all things turn-based and sci-fi wargaming. Let's make sure that we can spread the word and get some exciting input for what's going to happen next. Do you think the Klingons are going to lose the war against the Romulans? Are the Romulans going to suffer catastrophic defeat? Are the Tholians going to jump the Klingons in the Balkans, or are they going to pound the Carnivon into dust? Maybe all of it at the same time. Who knows? We'll have to see how this all evolves in the coming days. But last question for you. What'd you think of that thumbnail? Midjourney helped create the wonderful graphics that are that particular thumbnail. Did you like what that looked like? And if you did, would you like to see more of it? You let me know as we go forward here in this exciting and delighting live stream adventure that is Star Trek New Worlds. With that said, thank you very much for your attendance, everybody. I will see you next week. Oh, probably sooner. Remember, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can see when that in-depth discussion is going to happen on our battles. Thank you. I will see you later. Bye for now.